All right, so I'll start sharing my screen in just a moment, but as you guys all know, because you are here, we're going to be talking about lead generation today. And like I mentioned last class, I'm working really hard to make these classes both more engaging and provide better opportunities for you guys to share, because like I mentioned last class, we've created these courses based on my personal experiences and Brian's experiences, but by no means are we a one size fits all. And there's always a million ways to run your business. So I want to make sure that we provide opportunities for you guys to share what's worked for you and your business, both in the past and currently, and or what you're looking to learn. So before we jump in to these given lead generation styles, I wanted to just kind of put it out there and kind of go round robin, if you don't mind me asking, just to kind of see A, what it is that you would like to get out of today, and also B, what lead generation styles are you currently using and or have you used in the past? What did you enjoy and what did you not enjoy? And no need to go too in depth. I just want to kind of make some notes. And then that way, as I'm going through these topics, then I can kind of circle back to each of you if you've had experiences in that and give you an opportunity to share. Anyone mind kind of starting us off?
I'll start. I'm new, so I haven't really done much, but I guess what I'm trying to get out is there's so many different ways and there's so many things you can pay for, like pamphlets and mailers and all this stuff, and you can actually, that costs money. And if it's going to cost me money, I would like to know like what the best thing to do is to spend my money and where the best bang for your buck kind of situation is. And then so I'm just not just like willy-nilly going for it, but what I've been trying to do and I'm currently doing right now is, after watching some of the videos that was suggested by you and Brian, I'm trying to gather like my vendor list and like go-to vendors for people that are buying houses or people that already own homes that might, recently bought homes. We just bought a house and we built it. So my neighborhood is very, very new and people are still moving into it. So I want to get a vendor list of like just plumbers, electricians, handyman, landscapers, people that do pools, air conditioning, just like random things that you might need for your home. And then I'm going to make like a magnet with my name and real estate information at the bottom of it, and just kind of give those out for people to have them on their refrigerators or whatever. I just feel like if they need something in the middle of the night or just looking for a landscaper, they can go to that. But every time they go to that, they're also seeing my name. So it's something that's kind of in their site, in their plain view, without being obnoxious. That's what I'm thinking about now.
I love that, because what I hear is that you want to run your business like a business and you want to be conscious of what you're spending and what your return on investment will be, which is very valuable. And good news, we can do all of that for you pretty much, because I don't know if you saw the emails, but we actually just created a vendor book that you can send out digitally to your clients. So one of the thoughts that I had kind of similar to you was providing a way to get that to the clients in a digital format. So maybe putting that in a digital format and creating a QR code that could be on your magnet. And then that way, you're not having to do all the research. You just have a resource that they can just quickly scan if they need a plumber or something. But I love that idea. Yeah.
And just a follow-up quick question with that. With the vendor list that you guys sent, I did quickly review it. It's pretty extensive, which is awesome. But are those people, do they work throughout the entire triangle, or is it okay? Because I'm in Gardner and I was going to try to focus on like more local vendors, but if those people are like already vetted and work in Gardner as well, it might save me some time.
Yeah, most of those vendors will work all over.
Okay, cool.
And we've made that list based off of people and agents that have already used them and we have experiences from. So yes, very well vetted. Awesome. Thanks for sharing. Anyone else? What y'all got?
Well, I got a question to branch off of the going all over.
Okay.
So I live and I do some real estate work, selling and buying out where I live at. And it's about an hour away from the office. So I was wondering, when y'all did send out the vendors list, would they travel out that far? Because and I'm in the southern part of the county where I live at, so you could be looking at an hour and a half ride from Romney. It depends on where the location would be at in the county.
Yeah, I don't know specifically. I would imagine that it just depends on the given vendor. That might be a little trickier. Obviously, lenders and attorneys and things like that would probably be open to all of that. But whether it's like a plumber or a roofer or something like that, I don't know. I feel like it would probably be on a per company basis.
And that's what I was trying to get at, is like trying to figure out like what I'm like, who was that Timothy that was just talking? Because I'm actually kind of, I ain't gonna lie, I'm busy right now, and I wasn't paying attention to the screen. But I'm kind of like him. Like, when y'all send out the vendors list is great, but I was like, are these vendors gonna come way out here to Person County where I'm at, or should I end up creating my own vendors list of locally in Person County?
Mm. I think it would just really depend. Maybe do it for the ones that are kind of your big ticket items, like call some of the HVAC and plumbers that are on that list. And then if not, then start calling a few of your own. But I would definitely ask them at least first, just because we do have experiences with them.
Okay. Well, that's what I needed to know, because I'm kind of like him. I'm trying to figure out where the biggest bang for my buck is right now, because I'm, I mean, I've done some transactions, but I ain't got, 100 under my belt yet, type deal. And I'm trying to figure out where I can do to advertise. A lot of mine right now is just word of mouth, sphere of influence is what it is. People I know.
Well, that's everyone's ultimate goal though. So there's nothing wrong with that. That's good. What else you guys got? What are you doing to lead generate currently?
Well, this is Jackie. Good morning, everyone. I am, of course, I'm dabbling in social and kind of reaching out to everyone that I'm already connected with and just letting them know I'm here. I do have some family and friends that are actually looking to relocate to the Triangle. So, and ensuring it to expand and then letting them know, if they make that move, tell a friend. Because if they're moving, they may know someone else that's relocating for employment opportunities, et cetera. The other that I've done a couple and have scheduled is home buyer workshops. Those I like that. That's probably my service heart, but just going and educating about what our role is as a realtor, and the benefits and how we got it. And then also I touch on the loan process, but obviously there's a loan officer there to really kind of talk to that, and home buyer assistance and all. So that has, I've actually picked up a couple of clients. They're not necessarily always in the short term, like within the next 90 days, but they may be there in 6 months and ready to rock and roll. So I think that is an avenue that I've taken and participated in. So that's I think that's the extent of it. I peaked at, what is it, Opcity, which does a lot of referrals, but they also take a nice percentage out of once you do a sale. So not really tinkered too much with that, but I am familiar with it.
Yeah. Thank you for sharing. That's good stuff. And I mean, you're totally spot on with the home buyer workshops. And I even spoke with an agent the other day that was talking about doing like home seller workshops, which is nice. But we'll talk a lot about the nurture process, and that's actually where we build a lot of value. So obviously we all want a client that is ready to buy or sell tomorrow, but we need to be in the business in a few months as well. So it's nice to make a plan to nurture them and be there in the long run. Awesome. Anyone else want to share real quick?
A lot of mine has been sphere of influence, and then as well as the military moving in and out once I've worked with somebody and then they know somebody else that's moving here, which has been helpful. But I also have a first-time buyers with one of my lenders. We're doing a Zoom meeting so that we can reach people that will be moving in this direction. And Jennifer and I have one coming up in, I think, March, specifically for people looking at getting investment properties at the beach. Since I'm closer to the beach and she's has connections up there, then we can work together to get the investors down here.
Wow, that's great stuff. I mean, at the end of the day, I will say it a million times over, you guys will probably be sick of it, but our whole goal is to be a resource. Like there's just so much that people don't know, and it's understandable that they don't know it, but it's also understandable that they want to be educated on it because it's one of the biggest decisions they'll make. And so something like that is an amazing resource to people, because you want to know, will the HOAs allow it? And is there too much inventory of this? Will there be too much competition? Or, what would be my return on investment? That's great stuff. I love that idea. Thanks for sharing. All right, y'all. Well, I'll go ahead and I'll get started. Like I said, though, please jump in as we're talking about some stuff. If you have questions about it, I'll try to get to all of that. But additionally, I would love to hear, as I'm going through the different topics, if you've had experience in that. I know some of you guys, your history and some of your production, so I'll kind of call you out if I get an inkling that you might be able to add some value, but feel free to stop me along the way. I'm excited to have you guys here today, and thanks for hopping on. We're going to be talking about lead generation. I really appreciate you being here. Obviously, this is very important to our business. We are in a sales-based job, so we need to have someone to sell to. Last class, we spent a lot of time talking about our about our database and organizing that, and KV Core, and how to add all of that, including our SOI, to our database and all that fun stuff, which is great. But I know that that doesn't mean too much when you don't have any leads to sort it through, right? So we're going to talk today about how to get some leads into your database. Now, when we're going through this, I want you to keep in mind that there are a ton of options. Then it's endless, your opportunity for lead generation. I don't want you to be overwhelmed. I just want you to know that really and truly, we just need to pick one or two that works for us, that we enjoy doing, and that we feel sustainable in. But most importantly, that we can convert, right? There's not a one size fits all for all of us. There's a million things that we can all do to generate leads. And at some time, we might start our business doing one and have some success in that, and then transition down the road. So just know it doesn't mean we're going to be sticking to one forever, but I'm going to show you the benefits of each. I'm going to break them down. But sustainability really and truly is something that I am passionate about, and lead generation is a great way that we can do that. I know one of you said it, but we're on social media reminding our friends that we're an agent. Let's be real. Being an agent isn't enough. As much as we'd like to believe that everyone on Facebook that is our friend is going to know that we are a real estate agent, and therefore, as soon as they need to buy or sell, they are going to call us. But unfortunately, that's not always the case. We need to not only be an agent, but we need to be top of mind at the right time. It's kind of like when someone asks you for a restaurant recommendation, you all kind of panic. And then as soon as they leave, a little while later, you're like, oh my gosh, I have a million options for you, right? Same type of thing. We need to be reminding people that we are an agent. And so we need to, in a delicate way, not in the way that's, hey, who do you know that needs to buy or sell? But to Jackie's point, kind of training the people around us to remember that we are an agent. We need, in terms of our relationship with them, need to be providing value and reminding them how we would work for clients. We just need to be providing that opportunity. So we'll talk about how to stay front of mind as well. Again, the key here, though, is consistency and communication. Now, before I jump into this, one thing that I really want to talk about here today, though, is when we talk about leads, I think a lot of people have the misconception that a lead is a buyer or a seller, like a right now buyer or seller, especially when we're talking about internet leads. But very often that's not the case. Occasionally you do get that internet lead that pops up and out of thin air, they're ready to buy tomorrow. But very often it's going to take some time for us to turn this lead into a buyer or seller. And so please know that when we're going over all of this, regardless of which tactic you take or what platform you tend to gravitate towards, it's all going to be about consistency and communication, which is why last class we spent so much time talking about LP Mama or LP Mammal and kind of breaking down those very common qualifying questions that we should be asking people, because we need to stay in communication with them and we need to build that relationship, because it really does take time. And we want to make sure that we are actively listening to people. One of the things that I meant to mention last class when we're talking about nurturing people is, the benefit of having a CRM, kind of to Billy Joe's point, is to have all of our data in one place. And the reason that's so important is because we want to be able to circle back to it, and especially those little details, because sometimes we'll be working with someone for a year or 2 years. And so if we can circle back to those notes and be like, oh man, this one also has that herringbone tile around the fireplace that you loved at that first home we saw, right? And that could have been a year ago or something so small. People want to make sure that they have been heard. And so the more we can do that for them, the better our returns will be. AJ, what you got?
So you just said something about, I think I missed that class when you were talking about like what llama or something, whatever you just said. I think I missed that class.
Okay,
So
I'll send it to you after this,
Okay.
but basically LP Mama is an acronym for qualifying questions that or qualifying information that we're going to be gathering from any of our clients, mainly buyers. So it's going to be location, price, mortgage, appointment, motivation, agent, and listing. I'll
Okay.
send you all that, but yeah. So we're talking about real estate. Obviously, you guys know by now we are partners with the Locker Room. They have a ton of amazing videos and resources for us to better hone our business. So if there's anything that we talk about here today that you want to learn more about, hop on over to the Locker Room. They have a ton of courses, but one of their common phrases, one of the things they love to say is that real estate is a contact sport. And that is really true, right? No matter how we like to reach out to people, whether we are all about prospecting and making phone calls, or whether we are all about working with our SOI or social media, regardless, it's about making contact. And Brian has said the same type of thing before of the conversation is the relationship. And I think especially when you're first getting into it, you can run yourself ragged thinking of all of the things you're going to do. And to a certain extent, they very much can be lead generation based. But the key here is to make sure that whatever we are doing is leading to a conversation, because I can do as much outreach as I want to, but until that turns into a conversation, that's just marketing, right? Like we have to have a conversation in order to build that relationship. I joke all the time. I think I mentioned it the other day, but those like health GPO texts that we get of like, hey, would you like me to provide you a free quote, right? Like these people don't know me at all. They're just hitting me with these automated texts, which we all know are automated, right? But like nothing is going to come from a one-sided conversation, because that's just one person talking at someone or just throwing information at you. And so we need to be working on that relationship, because this is one of the biggest decisions someone will make in their lifetime. And understandably, they want to be heard. So the more we can provide opportunities for that, the better. So we're going to talk a lot. We're going to talk about a lot of opportunities today. We're going to talk about technology leads. We're going to go over some of the most common ones that you will find, the benefits of each, the quality of those leads, the costs of them. We're also going to talk about how to work with your SOI, how to add value and stay front of mind with your friends and family and neighbors and vendors, all of the things that Jackie had mentioned. We're also going to talk about technology, and we're going to talk about the kind of the standard real estate related lead generation tactics. So we're going to talk about things like open houses and door knocking. I'll show you how to do some geographic farming. We're going to talk about for sale by owner. There's a million ways to do it. But again, don't run yourself ragged. We're going to go over all of it. And so I would just kind of take some notes. I'm again going to provide a copy of the recording and the slides to you. So just kind of absorb it. Feel free to ask questions. Feel free to ask the agents around you as well, but we'll go over all of that. I want you to find something that seems exciting and sustainable to you. We'll also talk about how to communicate with each of them, because it will be a little different depending on how we acquired them. But before we jump into that, I wanted to spend a quick moment going over a case study that I'd seen a number of years ago. And this is something that was presented to me when I first got into the business, and I have since tried to find it a number of times and have not been able to. But in essence, what went down was a marketing company went out and they created a completely made up real estate firm, just made a name, went out to a neighborhood and did a quick poll and submitted it to all of the homeowners and said, if you were to sell your home tomorrow, what company would you use? They gathered all of that information and set it off to the side. And then they proceeded to send mailers to that neighborhood once a week for 8 weeks. Now, I don't have any information, and they didn't share what the content of those mailers were, whether it was like past sales or vendor information or a quote for how much they're going to buy your home for, whatever. No information about that. All they said was they consistently mailed this neighborhood once a week for 8 weeks. And at the end of the 8 weeks, they did the same survey that they had done on the front end, saying, if you were to sell tomorrow, who would you use? And what do you know? A number of the people within that neighborhood said that they would use that company. Now, it's not some astronomical number, but it was some. And it was for a company that didn't even exist, right? It's like, to what extent had these people even done any research? And so, in my opinion, this teaches us a few things. First and foremost, it teaches us that repeated touches work. No matter what we're talking about here, we have to recognize that a relationship, again, is not going to come from one conversation. It is going to take some time. We have to be patient with it. And it is understandable that they would want that, and repeated touches work. So we've got to put ourselves in situations where we have the opportunity to reach out a number of times, and we need to figure out what those conversations are going to look like. It also teaches us that direct mail isn't dead. But more than that, we have to consistently be getting our name in front of people, kind of cutting through the noise, if you will. If we're going to be on Facebook or social media, there's a lot of that, especially with different algorithms. We don't even know if our information or our page is going to end up in front of someone. And so we have to really make sure that we're being intentional about how we present ourselves and the way that we provide opportunity for people to reach us and see what we have to offer. So let's get into it. I'm going to start with technology leads because, quite frankly, being in the position that I'm in and speaking with agents all the time, but especially new agents, technology leads is one of the topics that we hear about all the time of, are you going to provide leads, right? And same thing as what I just said a second ago, there's a difference between a lead and a buyer, right? I can give you a ton of leads, but are they going to turn into buyers? And so there's a number of options out there for you. I think the one that we're all most used to hearing about is Zillow, but there's also Realtor and Facebook and Google, right? All of those have different options. They all have different costs associated with them, and each of them has a different quality of lead, if you will. So if we're kind of starting from the top, Zillow is the one that you'll hear most commonly about. When I was first getting into the business, this is what I did. I did a ton of internet leads. I came from a very heavily prospecting based company. They were paying a lot for leads. And so understandably, they wanted us doing those leads because they wanted to make sure they were getting the return on investment. And so after I came over to Choice, I continued doing Zillow leads. I don't even think that most independent agents can do Zillow leads these days. I'm pretty sure Zillow has changed the structure of what they provide, and they limit it to certain brokerages now. But in essence, for Zillow, you're paying a lot. You are often paying for a given zip code, and you are paying for a market share within that zip code. So those are truly, quote unquote, your leads, but they will give you an estimate on how many leads you will get for your cost. So again, I know it's changed slightly because I don't do that any longer. I don't have the most updated information, but I will give you a little history on when I did it. When I was actively doing Zillow, when I came over to Choice, because I had spent so much of my business doing internet leads, it was what I was most comfortable with. And so when I transitioned over, and because my other company, quote unquote, owned my database, I was like, I need to find some new clients. So I decided to advertise in 27610 through Zillow, and I was spending about $800 a month. Now, that was 4 years ago now. And so at the time, that was like a pretty penny to me on a monthly basis. But in the grand scheme of things, that is nothing for Zillow. There are a lot of brokerages that will dump, $2,400, $5,000, $10,000 a month on internet leads. But at that time, I was guaranteed to get 1 or 2 leads per month for $800. And honestly, considering their costs, that actually wasn't too bad. Now, like I mentioned last class, I was quite intentional about the way that I targeted that. When I did it, I was advertising, and I chose 27610 because, in my opinion, that was likely a first-time buyer price point. And when we're talking about cold leads, we have to be very intentional about how we build value. And so in my opinion, at that time, my value was coming from the fact that I was going to be educating them about the process. And so therefore it'd be a lot easier to continue to keep that relationship going forward. Another thing, sorry, I just want to make sure I hit record. Yeah. So that's kind of how I did my business. Now, like I said before, they've kind of transitioned. There's also realtor.com. That one is a lot more cost efficient. The leads are a little bit lower in quality if we're talking about internet leads. Now, the other thing to keep in mind here, though, is that realtor.com like I was talking about with Zillow, I was kind of guaranteed 1 or 2 leads. With Realtor, when your phone rings, it's ringing to a ton of people. So those aren't your leads. It is whoever answers the phone first. Now, even with Zillow, you have to be answering that phone very quickly. With Zillow, what will happen is a buyer will click on the I'm interested button. Zillow's representative will reach out to that buyer, qualify them ever so slightly, get them on the phone and say, I'll connect you with an agent. And then Zillow calls you, you answer the phone, and then they connect you. But let's be real, they're not going to be sitting there and letting the phone ring for 10 minutes. So they might be guaranteeing you 2 leads or 1 to 2 leads a month. But if you miss that opportunity, that was still the lead that you had, right? I don't know now if they pass it off to someone else or if it goes into your inbox, but what I can tell you from past experience is if you miss that opportunity to answer the phone, you've missed that lead. You can absolutely nurture them, but they've been connected with someone else because they wanted to see that right then. The other thing to make sure I've said it is when we're talking about internet leads, there is quite and I hate to say this, but like a speed to lead, right? Like there's quite the urgency, not only to pick up the phone, but to get out the door and go show them something. They have this, I don't know, they have this thought process that if they click on something, they're going to be able to see that house today. And so it can be hard to set those boundaries because you absolutely want to make sure you're converting, but at the same time, you want to make sure that you've got a schedule that works for you in your life, and you can't always be running out the door. And if that's how we start that relationship, then are they going to be thinking that that's what we're going to do for every showing they request? Maybe something to think about. Okay. Facebook leads obviously are, well, okay, back up for 1 second. With either Zillow or Realtor, the other thing to keep in mind is those people, because of the fact that they are the way they are registering, they know that they are signing up to be contacted. They know that they are in essence raising their hand, and that if they click on one of these properties saying, I want more information, they know to a certain extent an agent is going to reach out, right? There's other leads like Facebook or Google pay-per-click where the cost per lead is much lower, and just the cost in general is much lower. So you can get a lot more leads for the cost. But do these people even know what they're signing up for? Do they know that they're signing up to be contacted? They could very well just be scrolling through Facebook and thinking, oh, what a cute house. I just want to look at the pictures. And then they're wondering how you got their contact information. So all food for thought. But again, I would just caution you to think about, am I going to be spending a lot of time and money on this? Talking about what Tim mentioned on the front end, the cost associated with it is quite high. It can be a great way to start your business, but I would just like to remind you that if this is what you would like to do, this is how we're going to build our business in terms of building our SOI. And then at some point we're going to transition and just focus on our SOI because it's not sustainable. It is very hard for you to continue to kind of build your business based on these. You're paying per lead. There's no guarantee of the connection. There's no guarantee of the conversion, and they are cold leads. So we're having to prove ourselves. We're having to get in front of them. And we don't know necessarily whether they're qualified or not. So
do you mind if I say something on that too? Because I just heard a stat from this real estate coach that I followed that in 2021, 200 million leads were sold and only 6 million houses were sold in the US in 2021. So it's become a really big business for lead generation. So they sold over half like the United States in leads. And so there's a lot that doesn't pan out. So you do have to be really careful with that and know that, you know, not everything is going to turn into somebody buying a house.
absolutely.
I did OpCity for a little while, which is realtor.com. And yes, it's one of these fire drills with respect to responding and then meeting folks. And there were a lot of really unqualified leads. I did end up with a closing out of it before I stopped doing it for land. I mean, it wasn't a very big deal. But a lot of them are unqualified, and it is a fire drill. So you just have to be ready to be sitting by your phone and then race out, and they're expensive.
Thank you for saying that. That was something that I wanted to make sure I mentioned this morning, and I forgot to write it down, but that's one thing to really keep in mind if we're talking about lead generation and technology leads. Like, not only are they going to be expecting that we get out the door, but we're going to have to be sitting by our phone. Like, if we are paying that much money, we better make sure we don't miss it. So we're going to be keeping it right next to us. And so if we're going to be stepping out during dinner or some concert or whatever, like it's not necessarily ideal because we can't guarantee when those leads are going to come in. And like I said a few minutes ago, we might be able to get in front of them. If we are able to get on the phone with them when they first clicked that they're interested, we very possibly can get in the door to show them that house and get in front of them. Now, when we are in front of them, we have to be really intentional about making sure that we are setting our next appointment. In my opinion, an internet lead appointment is not truly a first appointment. Like, it's an opportunity to get in the door and show them something, but until we have secured that second appointment, it doesn't mean too much. And so we have to be really intentional about saying, okay, wonderful, this has been great. Why don't we set aside time tomorrow to sit down at my office and talk through the process, or whatever your next step is. You've got to leave those appointments with the next appointment already set. Otherwise, you're not going to get that conversion. But if we can't get in front of them from that, we have to make sure that we are putting them into our CRM, putting them on an e-alert, putting them on a drip, and continuing to call, text, email, and reach out. And not in a way that's annoying or hounding, but we do have to make sure that we're allowing our system to work for us, because if we are paying for technology leads, we're likely going to have more than we can manage realistically in terms of like note cards or something. We have to make sure that we really are using our systems to work for us and continuing to follow up. And to your point, Mona, OpCity is one of the ones that in terms of cost on the front end is really low. I think it's free to participate in, but they make you pay your dues and they will send you the core leads from the start. That'll be the land deals, it'll be a rental deal, and they make you update the system very regularly. Now, once you get a closing or two out of it, the price point slowly works its way up. But with all of that time, could you have been doing something else? Go ahead.
So apparently I must have been taking a lot of their leads, and at some point they started actually calling me with leads, which those were really terrible. You know, the $5,000 land or the mobile home in whatever, middle of nowhere, North Carolina. So I don't know. So apparently there's some sort of measure for those folks, the number, getting actual people to take those. And I don't know what happened when I started turning those down. I ended up stopping it after a while, but there were some really exciting leads.
Mm-hmm. Yeah,
that was my experience too with my old company. They actually paid for OpCity for us, for all their employees, and it was like, bottom of the barrel. And then you had to like the quicker you answer the phone, the more people you talk to, the better the quality. But like, I was in the office every day, just like going for it for a little while, and it gets exhausting. And it almost got like, I met with like 3 people and 2 of them were rentals. And I was like, this is just not worth my time.
Yeah, especially when the rentals will pay you like $300, $200 or $300 once you get the site, and you're like, oh, that's my gas. Yeah. Warren, are you on here in a way that you could chat? I know you do a ton of internet leads, and I know we have a lot of history doing them. I would love to hear your perspective on them, if you don't mind sharing. I know he doesn't have his video up, so he might just be tuning in. If you have a chance, feel free to hop on, Warren, though. I'd love to hear your thoughts. Really and truly, though, we need to be building value with these people and building brand recognition and relationships. Now, for perspective, the reason I was touching base with Warren is because we came from the same brokerage where we started our careers, which was very prospecting based. And when I say very prospecting based, I mean that we were required to make 1,200 minutes of phone calls per month. And for that reason that I just mentioned before, of we are getting so many leads, and yes, sometimes you are getting in front of them, but very often you're not, and you're having to make sure that you nurture them and continue to add value so that you can get an opportunity to get in front of them, or you ended up in front of them once or twice and then their timeline changed. And then, if they're a cold lead and they don't truly know you, they don't have any history, they might not have saved your number, they might remember your face but not remember your name. And so when they finally do start their home search again, are they going to remember to reach out to you, or are you yet again noise that they have to cut through? But that said, you can see great successes from it. I don't want to bash it. I just want you to recognize that there is a difference between a lead and a client, and making sure that I think when we think of internet leads, we think of instant gratification. And I want you to know that there's a lot of work that goes into them, and it can very much get you in the cycle of picking up the phone, calling them, getting in the door, getting them interested again, continuing to call. So, and you can just be stuck in the cycle of picking up the phone. And because you are spending so much time continuing to call people, continuing to pay for those, and because you're paying for them, you want to be picking up the phone, right? Like it can just be this vicious cycle of a burn and churn, if you will. Then it can lead to a little burnout, but more than that, it can be very hard to have additional time to dedicate towards your SOI. So if you're doing any of this, make sure that you are setting aside time and have a formal plan for your SOI, because that's where it drops off. Is if you are an agent that continues to build your entire business off of internet leads for years and years, you're forever going to be continuing to worry about how you're going to be paying for your next leads, when you have a whole database of past clients that you could be utilizing, but you need to continue to pour into them. And there's only so much time in the day. It's something to think about. And I say all of this out of love because this comes from past experience. I did internet leads for years and years, and it was very hard for me to make that change. But I did come to a point where I was saying, what am I doing? I'm paying this much a month. Like for that amount, I could just kind of chill and focus on sending out one mailer. That'd be a fourth of the cost. So things to think about. Aside from calls though, what else can we do? Let's talk about our SOI. We at Choice are very big on your SOI. Like if there is one thing that we preach on all the time, it is building a way to communicate with your SOI that is of value, that consistently allows people the opportunity to ask you questions about real estate. But more than that, it allows you to run your business in a way that's exciting. We are all about having a work-life balance. And I've said it a million times over, I want you to be excited about what you do, and I want it to feel sustainable to you, because if not, you're going to burn out. And that's not what we're here for. We're here because it provides freedom and the lifestyle that you want to live, but you have to create those boundaries, and you have to create it in a way that allows that to happen. So when we're talking about all of this, I think in real estate, we feel the need, because we're entrepreneurial, in essence, we're entrepreneurs, right? We feel like we have to be working all the time, because where are we going to get our next client from? But I want to be the one that's told you this, if no one else has, like take a minute for yourself and know that doing these random little things that you enjoy really truly is building your business. If you like to cook and you like to host, then organize a cookout in the summer once a month. Or our coach Kat was talking about the other day how she invites one new person over to their home each week. Maybe it's from church or the kids' soccer, whatever the case may be. They always make sure that they're inviting someone over. Find something that you enjoy, like join a kickball league or start a book club, whatever the case may be. Like put yourself, I know Brendan has talked about like rock climbing, do things that you enjoy and bring you passion, because naturally that's going to put us in a situation where we have the opportunity to meet new people. And when we're in relationship with people, they're understandably going to be asking what's going on in our life. And naturally we can then bring up what we do as a profession. And it doesn't mean, again, that we're saying, who do you know that needs to buy or sell? But we can always weave in there, oh, life is great. I showed a home today. I think they're going to write an offer. I've got skate lessons tomorrow, and then I'm going to try out this new restaurant for a restaurant week, whatever, like just weave it on in there. But naturally those things are going to come up, and over time, then you're going to be their person. Or if they see some headline on the news talking about interest rates and they see you at the rock climbing club later that night, they'll be like, hey, by the way, I saw this. What are your thoughts on it? Right? And the more we have those casual conversations, the more they'll see us as a true professional and want to turn to us when the time comes. We want to be, that said, we still need to be very intentional about our SOI. So they should be hearing from us, just like other leads, more than our leads. We want our SOI to know how much they matter to us. We want them to feel like they are truly our inner circle. We want to make them feel special. We want to keep them front of mind and kind of continue to reach out and touch them so that we keep that relationship strong. Oops. Brian has said this before, and I never thought about it really until he did, but it's something that really resonated with me, which is that being a real estate agent has made us better friends. Because it makes you think of, what are those things that I could be doing that no one really does anymore? Like, what can I do to make someone feel special and celebrated and recognized? I think there's so much going on in the world, and there's so many ways that we compare ourselves when we're on social media and all these things. Like there's so many ways to live your life and run your business, and it feels like everyone's just passing you by. And I think that there's so much value in just making sure that people around you know that you care about them and that you see them and that you know what's going on in their lives, and that's enough. And so, like I talked about, I started my entire business on internet leads. When I came to Choice, I continued to do that. And then I just had a realization that I needed to focus on what I had. And so I stopped internet leads and I completely turned on my game in terms of working my SOI. And I will say the timeline of it makes sense, right? I was right about that 3-year mark where you start to get referrals anyways. But the amount of time I had been in the business working internet leads, I would maybe get 1 or 2 referrals a year, maybe 3 or 4. I don't know. It was pretty low considering the number of homes I was selling. When I switched to focusing on my SOI, I would get, like, I would say 70% of my business started coming from my SOI because of this, because I was intentional about it. And I think the other thing to keep in mind is when I was focused on the internet leads, people knew that they were a lead. They knew they were a client. Whereas when we focus on the people around us, they're not a lead. They're our friends. They're our relationships. And this is a relationship business. And so they feel it. And so doing those little things really, really matters. I started doing things like sending flowers to people. I know it sounds cheesy. I love getting flowers. I love getting something in the mail, or just something unexpected. And so I kind of took that same approach with my friends. If I just found out that someone's expecting, or if one of my past clients, I found out that they had just had a grandbaby and I know it's their first one, I sent them flowers. These little things that you see on Facebook while you're scrolling around, just make a note of it and send something out. And it doesn't always have to be flowers. It can be something small. It could be a little, a $5 or $10 Venmo send to a friend. If you talked to them the other day and they mentioned that they started their new job today, just sending them a little note saying lunch on me today, like congrats on your new job. Oh, how awesome would that feel? I also will kind of keep an eye out on my clients and friends. If they've got a wedding or a baby coming up, I'll find their registry. I don't mind being a stalker. I will hunt it down and I'll send something from that list because they won't expect it. And then sending handwritten notes. It doesn't have to be anything crazy. I think we spend a lot of time thinking about what value will we add, which of course is an important thought process. But at the same time, we get enough bills. We're literally just having a handwritten note that says something about how much you were thinking about them or you valued the conversation you had the other day. That's going to really resonate with people. I know Renew talked about the other day. Let's see. Yeah, Renew's on here. We were talking the other day about dropping off coffee. I drop off coffee to my hairdresser pretty regularly because her studio is right near my house. But what are some of the other things you guys have done for your SOI, either in terms of individual drop-offs or maybe in terms of bulk drop-offs around the holidays or certain events? You guys want to share some stuff that you guys have done?
Okay, that's Renew. I know when I first started, I did, the Easter Peeps, which was relatively cheap. I bought Peeps for like 75 cents and then did a little postcard on Canva that just said, know any Peeps, with my real estate business, and that y'all were the heart of my business. So for Valentine's Day, doing that with you guys are the heart of my business with referrals, and I really just focus on just a few streets in my neighborhood. So I've done that. I'm starting to do some door hangers in my neighborhood as well, just to get my name out there.
Awesome. Well, we're going to talk about door hangers, so definitely share your thoughts on that in just a minute. What else y'all got?
Home Depot has poinsettias for $2 a piece right around Thanksgiving. So I bought a pile of those and delivered them.
Oh, I love that.
And I just went to the dollar store and bought a pile of these.
What are we looking at? Oh, cute. Everyone loves some chocolate.
Chocolates.
Okay, yeah. Yeah, I love it. Just making people feel special. What you got, Bryn?
I love sending Christmas cards anyway to as many people as I can, but I send a lot to past clients. And then I just reached out to some old past clients of mine just to check in with them. It had been a while since I chatted with them, and they were like, oh, we just had our first grandbaby, and they sent me pictures, and I knew kid's address. So I just put in the mail yesterday, just a card wishing them like, congrats on your new baby, and threw a Starbucks gift card in it just because.
Right. You're like, I know you're running low on sleep. That's
Yeah.
cute.
I was like, you need this coffee. It's on me.
That's really cute. I love that. And I mean, I will say it endlessly. I have already and will continue to preach it from the mountaintops of just call people when you're thinking about them. We are all connected and it never fails. If you are thinking of someone and you haven't thought of them in a while, or you haven't talked to them in a while, pick up the phone and call them. 9 times out of 10, they were thinking of you as well. I think I saw Allison on here earlier. Oh, she might have popped off, but Allison, it was on my mind. One of our agents was on my mind all week this week. And I feel like I've been on the phone and teaching. I hadn't had a chance to call her. And yesterday I was like, I have got to get this done today. And I stepped away to go get some water and I came back to my phone and she had called me. And I was like, I knew it. I knew there was a reason. And she was like, I haven't talked to you in a while. So there's always, those little things matter. We're building relationships with people. Let people know you care. Now, when we're talking about all of these, I think it's kind of nice to find a few and kind of weave them together. So I know Renu had mentioned some door hangers. Picking 1 or 2 things and kind of weaving them in with your SOI is very helpful. So sending postcards is one of those things. I know it seems so outdated, but it's not. And I'm telling you, like what we just said, handwritten notes, people get mail all the time, and most of the time it's bills. So if we're anything other than bills, I think we're doing a good job. And so making a rhythm of being unapologetic about promoting yourself and putting yourself out there. And unfortunately, I will say busy equals successful in so many people's eyes. And so if we can just get in front of people regularly, yes, they're going to throw it away. I'm not going to provide you some hack that's like this right here is what they're going to hold on to forever, right? They're still going to toss it in the recycling bin, but they're going to be seeing our faces. And so finding some way or some reason to reach out and some content to send them is going to make a big difference. And so, like I just said, you can kind of spin yourself in circles wondering what to send, whether it should be a vendor recommendation or some home checklist or whatever, right? Honestly, I would just send them what's going on in your business. Send them things that have closed recently. Send them something that was just listed. Send them an overview of all of the homes that you've closed in Q1, or send them your latest testimonial, whatever the case may be, because they're going to see you're closing something. And so they don't need someone else to tell them one more thing to add to their to-do list. They're probably not going to do it anyways. So just send them stuff that promotes yourself. They're going to see that as successful. And therefore they're going to be like, man, they're actively in it. They're getting mailers from Open Door and all these other brokerages that they don't know. I'm sure they would love to cheer you on. They would love to see what's happening in your business. It doesn't matter that that home is in a totally different city, or maybe it's even in a different state. Maybe that your SOI doesn't even live here. But again, there's people moving to the area all the time. And they might know someone in that area. So things to think about. And it doesn't have to be all the time, right? It could be once a quarter. If it's once a month, that's amazing. Whatever feels sustainable to you, do that.
Can I ask a quick question with these mailers and stuff like that?
Mhm.
Since I'm really new, I haven't done much of these things, but with the branding and marketing and stuff like that, we have to put like choice residential on there somewhere, right?
Mhm.
And it has to be like I don't know. I just remember being like scared to death about like what you're allowed to do and what you're not allowed to do. Like, don't be in like real estate jail and all this other stuff. And I'm like, what is going on? Why can't I just like mail something in the mail? So like, does it have to be larger? Like, say like I'm calling my company's a certain name, but does Choice Residential have to be bigger and more president than mine, or does it matter as long as it's on there? I don't know.
I think as long as it's on there, you're good. But that is a big question. So ask Brian to confirm. I will say if you're sending out mailers in bulk, I would recommend sending him a copy of it just to approve before you send it out. Just make a habit of that. But yeah, I mean, you can't really see it on here, but mine was down here. And also, I don't know if I said this on the front end of this class, but as you guys know, I always share all of the templates that I have. So past postcards I've created, I'll send you the template for that as well. Has anyone had experiences sending mailers out? And if so, how frequently and what were your successes with it?
I've sent letters, but they were typically, I sent letters to a neighborhood for an investor who's looking for properties, and I got some hits on that. And then I've sent a letter for a client of mine that was looking to be in a certain neighborhood. And I made sure that I would type the letter, but then I would always hand sign it, and then I would handwrite the address, put a different stamp on it. And I had good luck with those where I had people reach out that were looking to sell. So even though it may have not worked for my buyer, and we were able to list and then potentially help them buy on the other end. So it's really helpful.
Yeah, the handwritten part is really crucial as well. There are other platforms kind of, well, let me circle back to the SOI part real quick in terms of mailers. On that note, we use AM cards here at Choice, something to kind of think about. The thing that I like about them is it looks like handwriting. And I would like to say we do handwrite all of them in terms of like typing them out. You do have options for templates and stuff, but the nice part about it is you can schedule to send them out. So, you know, handwritten cards are amazing, but if you don't feel like, you know, I will say done is better than perfect. So if to you, it is just not realistic to be sending out birthday cards to all your people, but it's something you want to be doing and you have that information, then think about using a system like AM cards, where you could then go in and make kind of a template for what you'd like to say, but then go in and customize it. And then when you do that, you can go in and schedule when it should send. And so if you time blocked a few days or a week at the beginning of the year to do that for all of your clients, then it's done and you don't have to worry about it. But it's another touch that's very personalized and makes people know they're thought about. Just something I wanted to throw out there. And oh, one more thing on that note, kind of to Jackie's point, this is kind of our opportunity to keep an ear out for people and make sure we're hearing those keywords of life changes, especially, but also kind of training our SOI to hear about those things as well. The more we recognize it, especially in our posts and when we reach out, then the more they'll get used to thinking about that as well. Oh, I'm starting a new job, or I'm moving to this place. These are things to be celebrated. And there are also opportunities where people might want to be moving. And so it's good to be in relationship with people at those times, especially. Another thing that a lot of agents will do is send magazines. Home by Design makes magazines. And then if you sign up for it, it is a little bit more expensive. I think it's like $3 or something a magazine, but you can send your contact information and your headshot and they will put it on the front of the magazine, and that goes out every month. You can do it every month or you can do it quarterly, whatever you are comfortable with. It looks really professional though, and the people that do this say that the people that get this literally think that they have designed an entire magazine. Obviously they haven't, right? Like we didn't write all of this, but it's a nice little easy touch, and literally all you have to do is pay for it. You know, it's, keep in mind there's cost to everything. I'm not saying go spend your money on everything, but just know that's an option to you. Does anyone here use that? I'm trying to see. I don't think anyone does it, but it's an option to you.
I've received a few of those, and I actually enjoy getting them too. And whether I'm paying attention to the realtor or not, but I just enjoy the magazine. So
yeah, it's good stuff. And to that point, I think their database is really good about keeping track of if you are already getting one from an agent. I don't think it'll double up because they don't want you to be getting two of the same magazines. All right, let's talk about everything else. These are now that we've talked about all of the other most common ones, these are the ones that we think of when we really think of real estate lead generation. These are kind of your common ones. One of the most common is open houses. Love them or hate them, they're free leads, really, like relatively speaking. So the cost for acquisition is relatively low. Open houses are wonderful because they provide people an opportunity to come to you, and whether they like it or not, they're attending knowing that someone is going to be in that home waiting to have a real estate related conversation. And so we know that they are actively shopping to a certain extent, and or they're actively looking to make a change in some way. So even if they are a nosy neighbor, that's okay. It gives us an opportunity to have a conversation and learn more about that neighborhood. But we don't know, maybe they want to sell down the road. We could see how this home compares to the one that they have. First step though, finding an open house. That can be a little tricky, especially as you're getting into it, especially if you don't have your own listing. Very understandable. I'm actually a huge proponent advocate for hosting an open house that isn't yours for so many reasons. But I've started my business as a buyer's agent, so I got used to this script a lot, but recognizing that the benefit of being in a home when you're not the listing agent is I can truly say when a client walks in the door, like, let me know your thoughts. I'll do my little spiel, right? And then I'll say, but let me know if you have any questions. Let me know what you like, what you don't like. Just know I'm a buyer's agent, so I don't represent this listing. I'm here for you. I'm not here for this house. So if this house doesn't work for you, no worries. I'd love to know what does, so we can work on finding you something that would fit your needs. And I'm saying that with all honesty, right? So if we're looking to find a listing, there's a number of ways we can do this. One, post on our Facebook group and ask. Sometimes people will proactively list their listings on there and see if anyone wants to host one, but I would just kind of post if you have a weekend coming up, just see if anyone has anything that they would mind you hosting. You can go a step above and beyond that. You could also go on MLS. If you are on MLS, on the right hand side, it'll say like market, new, and stuff like that. You can click office, and then from there click either active or new, and that will show you the listings that are currently hosted by Choice agents. You can then scroll down and find what agent it is that is the listing agent for that, and just give them a call and just let them know. That's kind of the best way to do it, because then you're incredibly proactive about it. If you wait until it's on Facebook, there are going to be a few other people that are wanting to do it as well. So you kind of have to make sure you're jumping on it, and that's a good way to stay ahead of it. You could also reach out to new construction agents. It's a little harder to find these opportunities, but occasionally the smaller builders will have these opportunities where maybe they don't have a model home, or they don't have someone on site in general, or they used to have someone on site, but they're closing out that community. They only have 3 properties left, and they've moved their new construction representative to the new community already. They might have a few pending. Feel free to reach out about that and just see if you have a good relationship with a builder already. It's worth making the ask. Then you're going to find a time to do it. And once you do, you're going to schedule it and promote it. Now, real quick, talking about the times. I know obviously weekends are the most common that we'll hear about for open houses, but I also love the idea of doing an open house on an evening, like a Thursday evening or a Friday at lunch. Get a little creative with it, especially in COVID, more and more people are working from home these days. But also, who doesn't want a little excuse to dip out early? So they're like, well, I gotta go to this open house, be their reason. That's fun. Get a little creative with it. If it's somewhere that has a good amount of traffic, feel free to do it on an evening. I actually, when I was first coming over to Choice, I somehow connected with an agent that had a community off of Leesville Road, and it was new construction. They only had 2 houses that were left. One of them was staged and furnished, but the agent had already left the community. And so I was able to do some open houses there on Thursdays, like Thursday afternoon/evenings. And that was really nice because there's a lot of driving traffic around there. And so once you do that, once you get a house that you have as an option, you want to make sure you're promoting it. You want to make sure, first and foremost, you schedule it on MLS. So make sure that you're doing that just like you would a showing. There's nothing worse than touching base with the agent and thinking that they're the one that's going to organize it for you. And then you get to the house and realize that you don't have any of the access info. Make sure you've scheduled it, please. You can do that in MLS, but make sure that it's promoted on MLS and on Zillow. If you are not the listing agent, make sure the listing agent knows to do that for you. You're then going to want to make sure you're promoting it on your social media and accordingly. If you do it on social media, I would highly, highly recommend going to your front end website for KV Core. So whatever that is for you, .choiceresidential.com, typing in that property address, and then using the link from your website in your promotion of it. And then that way, anyone who's clicking on that to see what the open house is that you will be hosting, they're then funneled into your website and therefore will end up as a lead in your CRM after a certain number of clicks. We don't want to be posting a Zillow link for the open house we're going to be doing, because all that is some other agent on the side. If someone was to inquire about it, you want to make sure that if they're inquiring, that it comes to you. If you have time, I love the opportunity of walking the neighborhood and doing a little door knocking or putting door hangers on doors, letting people know that you're doing an open house that weekend, or even sending mailers if you have time. That can be hard to figure out the timing of. But during COVID, when things were selling in 2 hours sight unseen, first of all, it was so hard to even get to an open house because most of the times it'd be canceled by the time the weekend came anyways, but definitely didn't have enough time to send out mailers. With us seeing a little bit more of an increase in days on market, though, we do have the opportunity to kind of circle back to this type of marketing. And as much as we all joke about nosy neighbors, there's a reason they're nosy. They likely are going to sell at some point. So definitely start that conversation, or have a mailer that says there's nothing better than picking your neighbors, or friends make the best neighbors, something like that. You know, if you know someone that's looking to move, let your friends know we've got a house coming up. And promote it and promote it. The tip here is to make sure we always send handwritten notes though after our open house. And so whatever your rhythm is, now when I was doing open houses, a few things I didn't hit on, and I'm going to touch on this a little bit, but I want you to know there's an amazing course in the locker room, which is presented by Mary Lou Dingman, who's an agent with us here at Choice. She was like the open house queen when she was in production. She's a whole course on how to do your open houses to perfection. So check that out. But another thing, make sure you're putting out your open house signs. I am neurotic about it. I will say I don't really like open houses because I probably make too much work for myself and my conversion wasn't there. But I would always take a screenshot of that neighborhood or surrounding neighborhood and print it out. And then I would physically circle where I wanted my open house signs to go. And I would pay attention to what are the biggest roads. Let's start there. What are the biggest roads that could funnel me some drivers or some attendees? And then from there, kind of figure out where they need to point. Now, Coach Kat is a big advocate, as am I. Scalability, do what makes you happy, outsource what doesn't. Just because it's on your to-do list doesn't mean you need to do it. So if you got a kid or you want to hire a neighborhood friend or, you know, some little high school or something like that to pay to put out your signs, think about it. You know, if it could save you time, it might be worth it if it would mean that you're doing more of them. Food for that. But typically I'd go set out all my signs. If you can do it the night before, you can't really do it too much earlier than that. Otherwise, most HOAs will take it down. Be courteous of neighbors. If you're putting it in someone's yard, try to ask them. People just hate that for some reason. So make sure you ask, like, hey, can I put this in your yard? I'm going to take it down as soon as our open house is over, but put it out. Be sure you take them down as soon as it's done. Print out a copy of the MLS sheets and bring that with you. I would normally bring at least one copy of the disclosures with you and any additional information like a floor plan or a survey, whatever you have. Some agents are really good about having a binder in the home with all of that information, but not all the time. I feel like I'm seeing that less and less. So make sure you bring as much information as possible with you. I would also bring some information on comps. Find a little script that feels engaging and realistic to you. And MLD will talk a lot about that in her course. I am a very laid back person. So the thought process that I always had was I would pick 2 or 3 things about the house that was not incredibly obvious when they walked in, right? I'm not here on HGTV being like, and their cabinets are amazing when I'm standing in the kitchen. They know, they've got eyes, they can see it. But I might pick a few things that they might not have seen in the photos that I want to make sure they pay attention to. So as they're coming in, I'm saying, hey, welcome. Thank you so much for coming in. The seller has requested that they understandably know who's in their home. So if you don't mind just signing in for me real quick, I'd really appreciate that. In the meantime, here's some information for you. Everything's on there, but one thing or a few things I just want to note, they did get a new HVAC. They also installed some new carpet. So that they've really taken care of the home. Also, I think you'll love the closet. They've had California Closets come in here. They did some custom cabinetry. I'd love to hear your thoughts after you tour it, but feel free to look around. Let me know your thoughts. I'm happy to answer any questions that you have. I am not there to hover. I'm not going to follow them through the house, but I am picking one thing that I like about the house that in my head, I know I'm going to ask them about before they leave. Like I'm dropping a nugget of what we're going to talk about to a certain extent. Now, if there's something naturally that flows and you know, they've got kids or they already live in this neighborhood, whatever, like it's going to be a little bit easier for us to find something to talk about, to pick a topic and make sure you're touching on that. Now, the other thing that I also love getting in the habit of is if it is not your listing. So if you're not here to sell this house, picking in advance, looking to see what is active in the neighborhood, first and foremost, regardless of whether you're going to do what I'm about to say or not. Look to see what the comps are in the neighborhood. See if there is anything else active. People are probably going to talk about it. You don't want to sound like you're not educated about what's happening in that neighborhood. So if someone walks in and they're like, oh, this is great. I don't know though. I really liked the other house better. Like I went to that one's open house, or the other one seems to have more open floor plan. You don't want to just be like, oh, right. We can talk about it and be like, oh yeah, man, did you see their floors too? It looked really good. There's nothing better than letting them subtly know that you know what you're talking about. But where I was going with this is in advance, I would always look to see if there was anything in a similar price point in that neighborhood, if not in that neighborhood, in a 1 or 2 mile radius that is similar enough that it could potentially fit the needs of any client that is coming to this open house. Like they might also be interested in this other one. If so, I would then print out 1 or 2 copies of the MLS information that I would typically bring to a showing for that house. And I would book an appointment for it for after my open house. So if my open house is from 2 to 4 on a Saturday, then I'm booking an appointment for that other house from 4 to 5 or 4:15 to 4:45. And then that way, if someone is coming through and they're like, man, I love this area, I just don't know if this is the house for us, we'll keep looking. I can say, oh, well, have you seen the other one that's around the corner? It's a very similar floor plan, but it does have a larger bonus room like you just mentioned. I actually haven't seen it yet. You want to humor me and let's go tour it together after this open house? I get out of here at 4, want to meet me there at 4:15. I know Brent has mentioned before the humor me thought, right? Like just like make it casual. I want to see it too. Will you humor me and go with me? And then that way we know that we've already booked that appointment. So we're not hoping that they then approve it. And if no one ends up saying yes, or I don't end up having that opportunity for conversion, I can then either cancel it or I can still go ahead and do it and just take a video tour of it and use that as social media content that I'll use later. AJ, what you got?
AJ. Can you hear me?
Uh-huh.
I'm gonna rewind a little bit because the question that I had is a little bit further back. You already mentioned. So when you're doing an open house and you have people come in and you have them sign in, what is the purpose of that? Because how could you stay on top of it and connect back with them if it's just a name and not like a name, an email address, or a phone number?
Great question. So when I have clients sign in, they are providing all of that. You can either make your own sheets or you can download them from Etsy, or you can go to the realtor store and carry or order them online. But they have open house sign-in sheets that will ask people not only their name, their phone number, their email address. It will also have an address line. And then very often it will have a few qualifying questions asking them, what is their timeline? Are they qualified? Do they have a home to sell? Are they interested in me sending market data on that? And so it asks them a number of questions. Now, there's no guarantee that someone will fill out all of it, but if you put it in front of them and say, hey, the seller has requested that they know who's in their home, then they're going to have, like, it is a requirement that you sign it in essence. And so if you have certain forms, then they actually will be providing all of that. And so the goal there is to gather their information so that you can then follow up with them after the open house, and going forward as a lead, you can add them to your CRM and you're adding more and more people to your pipeline.
I can send you a sample, what I use. I don't ask the qualifying questions, but I do ask, what is the name of your realtor? Because if you say, do you have a realtor, they'll all check yes, because nobody wants you to contact. But if you ask them for the name of their realtor, then they have to give you a name. So it helps you qualify whether or not they're working with someone. That's mostly what I want to know. Are you already working with somebody? If you are, I don't even want to know the rest of that stuff. I just want to know if you're working with somebody.
Mm-hmm. Absolutely.
Katie Core also has an app where you can have them sign in. It goes directly to your CRM.
Ooh la la. Who's talking? Is that Amy? Oh,
Yeah.
Awesome. I'll have to look into that. That's perfect. Yeah, if you have like a little iPad out or something, makes life easy, and then just kind of push on through.
I appreciate you answering the question, because when you first said it, I'm like, okay, if they just signing in with their name, how can you come back to contact them?
True. Understandable. Yeah. But I mean, the purpose of all of that is that you get in a good rhythm. And I mean, as with anything, but especially with open houses, they are as successful as you make them and as successful as your follow-up will be. And so whatever you intend on doing, make sure that you recognize this is not a 2-hour commitment. This is likely like a 5-hour commitment if we're talking about putting out signs. And in terms of adding these people to my CRM once I'm done, that's a great way to save time, Amy, if they're already being automatically imported, and that's not something you have to do, manually import them. But then making sure you recognize that, I'm going to send a handwritten note after my open house, which I think is our next slide. I'm going to mail that to them, because who does that? Like, I'm sure if they've come to an open house, they've probably been to a few of them. And so how many of those other agents have actually sent them a mailed card? Probably not any, but maybe one, right? Like, at least be in that top part that no one else has done. Also picking something to follow up with. I know Coach Kat has mentioned after an open house, she'll do a little video, like she'll send a text to someone after they've left the open house, after she's finished, just saying like, thank you so much for coming. And she will make it personalized. Now, the other thing I want to mention is, there's pros and cons to everything. So if you have a physical sign-in sheet where it's like one person per entry, then on the back of it, I would always write down little notes. Like this was the couple that came in and they had a daughter with them that was in a tutu. They were heading to like a ballerina concert afterwards or whatever. And Coach Kat has said she will try to make sure that those videos that she sends out afterwards are very personalized, being like, thank you guys so much for coming. It was so nice to meet you both. Tell your little girl, Lydia, like, I can't wait to hear about her performance. She looked adorable. I'm sure she's going to do amazing, right? Like whatever it will be, so that they know that you know who they are. There's great value in knowing people's names. And so if there's, most of the time only one person will sign in. So if you catch the other person's name, make sure you're writing that down as well. You want to make sure that you're starting to build that relationship. Does anyone else have open house experiences or standard practices that they want to share?
I'll add, I've done several, and I closed a house that I met somebody from an open house. So, I would also say like the little MLS sheet to personalize that, as well to your, picture. Because I know a lot of the listing agents leave all of that. So I usually move all that out and put my own, to brand it as my own kind of listing. So that would be one thing. And then I do a sign-in sheet, and as soon as I get home, I also add them to my KV Core and send a personal email.
Love it. Yes. Follow up. That's amazing. And I mean, I totally agree. You can definitely do the like agent, buyer with agent or something like that, where it does the little picture in the corner. Or you could even just print those out and go onto Canva if you have time and just make a little printout that's a little more consolidated. To your point at the front end of this call, Tim, MLS isn't necessarily the prettiest in terms of the way they present information. So maybe going in and making a little flyer, snagging a few photos and putting those little bullet points of new HVAC, whatever, right on the front. It's a great way to kind of personalize it. Awesome. Thanks. All right. Door knocking. This is one of the ones that I feel like gets a bad rap. And I think it has kind of a certain stigma to it, or it kind of, you think it looks in a certain way. And by all means, I think most of us think of like the AT&T people showing up on our doorstep on a Saturday when this is the one day that we don't have stuff going on, right? But that's not necessarily the case. It can be that, but I think more than that, you're just using this as an opportunity to introduce yourself to a given neighborhood and giving people the opportunity to get to know you. And so first and foremost, you need to pick a neighborhood. Very often this could be your own, if that's something that interests you. If not, feel free to pick a neighborhood. I'll talk in a minute about how to do that and how to find information on people. But, when you're getting started with both door knocking and or open houses, I'm a huge believer in doing your research so that you know what you're talking about. Wild concept, but going in and looking through some of the history of things that have sold over the past 6 months and seeing what they sold for, how long were they on the market, what were the finishes like in my own neighborhood. I know that most of the homes were built in about 2004. The vast majority of them have solid surface countertops, and most people haven't replaced them. we're seeing a few more that are doing granite, right? But little tidbits like that, I'm going to kind of make a note of so that I can see what's common or what's uncommon. Or I have a rental house out in Southeast Raleigh, and I know that that neighborhood, half of the homes are built around 2008, 2010, and the back half were built in 2020. And so the layouts are different, as are obviously the ages and finishes. So just general information that will help you speak in an educated way, because when we're going around and introducing ourselves and therefore claiming that, you know, we want to be a resource, we can't then not know anything about the area that we're trying to be a resource about. So make sure we've got some tidbits to mention, so that if I were to be door knocking in my own neighborhood, for instance, and someone mentions, oh yeah, I just did all these updates, like we completely replaced the cabinets, we updated the countertops, blah, blah, blah. I can say, oh my gosh, wow. Like I've seen a few people update their countertops here, but replacing the cabinets also, y'all went above and beyond. Like no one else in the neighborhood has done that. That really hits home, because they know that I've done my research and they know I actually know what I'm talking about. We also want to figure out what we're going to be bringing with us. Business cards are a great idea. But maybe even just something more of value, like a little resource or some data on what sold over the past 6 months, or what current comps are looking like. But the key here is to make sure you're not selling them while you're on their doorstep. We'll get to that in just a second, but just kind of keep in mind, we don't need to overthink it. Especially with your first touch, maybe just have some business cards in your back pocket, but just know that we're in general trying to start by building a relationship. And then from there, maybe the next time around, we'll bring something with us. We obviously want to make sure we know what we're going to be saying. Why are we at their door? What are we saying here? Most of the time, we're just introducing ourselves, especially, you know, if this is our own neighborhood, this is a lot easier. Because then we're just going around being like, hey, I moved here like a year ago. I just haven't had a chance to introduce myself to everyone. So I just wanted to go around and say, hey, you know, I mentioned a text I got the other day that I really loved, but feel free to work this same type of thought process into your conversations of when you have the opportunity, saying, you know, I just moved here. I'm in real estate. I'm a foodie. I love exploring the local coffee shops, like whatever the case may be, but finding those little talking points so that they know you're in real estate and they know that's why you're there, but you also are very relatable and you're providing opportunities for them to engage with you. And then also kind of dressing to look the part. Now, it can go one of two ways. You can absolutely kind of dress a little nicer. Please don't show up in a suit on someone's doorstep. That's really intimidating. But, you know, dressing the part, or wearing workout clothes and making it nice and casual and being like, I was just popping by. I know Renew, I think, were you the one that had mentioned that you'd done some door knocking and you just brought like your kid in a like a wagon, or was that someone else?
Well, it was somebody else.
Okay. Well, we did do a whole panel interview on neighborhood farming, and door knocking was a part of that. So I'll be sure to include that recording when I send out this one as well for you guys to reference. But that's something that someone mentioned is, you know, if you are in that neighborhood already and you've got kids, like just wearing your workout clothes that feels nice and casual, and it feels like you're just kind of stopping by to build rapport. Like we're just trying to get in front of them, start this relationship so that we can be front of mind at the right time. I think the thing to keep in mind here is we're not looking to sell them when we're on their front porch, especially the first time we're meeting. We are strictly just saying, hey, making sure we'll put a face with the name, telling them what we have to offer, and providing some little point of conversation, and then kind of moving on. Compliments are a great icebreaker. So if you love the way that they've landscaped and you're wondering if they could share their landscaping contact, whatever, like people love to be asked for help. Another thing, though, something to think about is when I talk about weaving multiple lead generation styles together in a way that's sustainable, one of the things that you could also do is do your open houses and decide to door knock either before or afterwards, probably before, and just saying, hey, I just wanted to reach out real quick. Or actually, you know, when you're touring a home, after you get done touring, making a plan to door knock 2 or 3 houses before you leave that neighborhood, especially if you're first getting into the business and you're looking for clients. Find a house that's vacant, do a little fake video tour of it, go tour it, And then before you leave, go knock on a few neighbors' doors and just say, hey, I'm a local real estate agent. Introduce yourself. I'm a local real estate agent. I have a client that's looking in this neighborhood. They really love it. I actually just finished touring that house across the street. And they really like it. They might be putting an offer in, but they're from out of state. And so I just wanted to hear from the neighbors, like, what do you love about this neighborhood? What do you like? What is the traffic like? Would you mind just sharing a little information that I could pass along to my clients? People love to be asked to help, especially when it doesn't mean that you're asking who they know to buy or sell, right? Like they're just, you're asking for advice from them or information. They're more than happy to share. And then from then you can say, awesome, thank you so much. I'll be sure to pass it along. In the meantime, here's my card. And then when you leave, you make a note of which houses you went to, and then you follow up with a handwritten note saying thank you for their time. My clients really appreciated their input. That was really valuable to them. On top of that, I feel like door knocking and geographic farming go hand in hand. I know one of you mentioned earlier doing, I think Bryn was one who mentioned it, doing mailers on behalf of clients. You can do it for investors. You can do it specific to given buyers. I've had a buyer that was looking in a certain neighborhood or in a certain area of Cary, and it was very specific what they wanted. And it was kind of around the COVID time, right before it got too crazy, where there was just so little inventory. And so, yeah, absolutely, Tim, can do that. Bye. But I'll send you guys the templates for these as well. But when that was the case, I was sending out letters like this to given neighborhoods. And so typically what I would do is just say, hey, I'm reaching out because I have a client interested in this neighborhood. Here's a little criteria of theirs. If you have a house that might fit these needs, just let me know. I'd love to come do a little tour of it, completely no pressure. You don't need to clean or prepare in advance. I'll just come and take a look and see if it might work for my clients. And then if it does, I'll circle back and we can make a plan to schedule a formal showing. Now, real quick, I want to hop around real quick. I'm going to share a different screen. Give me one moment. I'm going to show you guys how to do this real quick. Okay, can you now see my MLS? Give me a thumbs up, anyone? All right, well, I'm going to assume yes. So a few things to note. Thank you, AJ. A few things to note. One, when you are on MLS, like I was just talking about picking houses to potentially door knock after a showing, for instance, what you can do is when you're on MLS and you click on the mapping feature, you click on the mapping feature and you pick a given area. Let's say you're looking within this neighborhood and like this is the house that you just toured. Then you can come in and see if you click on a given property on the left-hand side, it will pop up some information about it. It will tell you the last sale. It will tell you their estimated loan to value. They'll tell you their propensity to sell and whether it's owner occupied. Love this. And so as I'm going through this, I would screenshot it and print it out again, and maybe just have a highlighter of a few different colors. And green is my like, yeah, definitely these people. And yellow is my maybe, or something like that. So as I'm going through this, I can make a green note to say, ooh, this one is high, because there is no past sale, like the date of their last sale is not known. And it seems like they've paid off a good portion of their house. So they might be original owners. They probably have a good bit of equity in their house. They probably would have a really good situation if they wanted to sell. And doing the same thing. And then that way I know, well, if these people right across the street, just same thing here, this is a good one, although it looks like land. But going through and seeing who would have the highest propensity to sell and making sure that those are the people you talk to. If you run across something like this and the propensity is low, maybe that's not the house that I walk up to. Maybe this is someone that like just bought, which all of who wants to target this neighborhood? They've got a lot of high propensity to sell. But sometimes you'll be looking through it and it'll say low. And sometimes that has to do with the fact that the sale was last year or something like that. So that might not necessarily be the house that I walk up to. If I really do need that information, then that's a great talking point. But ideally, I'm going to target the people that have been in it a while and therefore might sell. So something to note. Now, the other thing though, is if you go in, I get this question a lot in terms of if I want to target a given neighborhood, I want to do some geographic farming. So I want to pick them, I want to export some addresses, and then I want to do some mailers. This is how you do it without physically having to drive down the street and or go through Google Maps and click and hand type all of the information. This is how you can easily export it. If you go onto MLS and you click tax and CRS data tax search, it will take you to this page. You will then click prospecting. Now, I don't know why, but mine always starts by targeting Harnett County. So if you have anything in there, just go ahead and delete it. But then you can go ahead and either zoom in on the map if you have a general idea of where you want to be doing your farming, or you can type in a street that might be in the general vicinity of where you want to focus. So let's see. Why does it say no options? Oh. Gateway County. Slider Drive. Let's say this was the neighborhood I wanted to target. Okay. I will then delete that address because I just want to get to the general area that I need to be in. I'm then going to delete that so that my criteria isn't limited to only homes on that street. I'm going to delete it so that it's the whole area. I can then draw. I typically will do polygon. So you'll outline the whole thing. I zoomed in a little too far, but you get the point. Outline the whole thing and finish it out. I want to include that selection. And over on the right-hand side, every single address and its associated information, owner, etc., will populate on the right-hand side. I can then select all of those, select all, and I can export it. And when I do that, I can then edit the fields that I would like exported. So if there's anything that I definitely want to know or don't want to know, I can alter that here. I typically will do the owner's first and last name, and then I'll do their mailing address because sometimes they don't physically live there. They could live out of state, but you can alter whatever fields you want or don't want. And then from there, you can export it. And from that, it will export to a spreadsheet. So within 3 minutes to 5 minutes, you can have a whole list of those mailers. So just know that that makes your life really easy, which I am all about. Oops. Oh, I stopped sharing. My apologies, y'all. Meant to get back to the other one. Alrighty. So geographic farming. Now, when we're doing all of this, we do want to make sure that, again, we're doing repeated touches. If we do 1 or 2 mailers, that's not going to mean anything. We have to recognize that whatever we're doing has to be consistent touches. So obviously geographic farming mixed with mailers like postcards or letters, whatever the case may be, that's what you're going to want to do. Hit them with that one too, like I said. So maybe you do some mailers and then maybe you do some door hangers or some door knocking. I had some clients that lived near our office. They lived in North Raleigh, kind of near Lafayette Village. They absolutely loved their house. Ideally, they would find another house in that neighborhood. They just really wanted a more open concept layout. And we're at the point where they were definitely getting open to the idea of an owner's bedroom downstairs. And so we had started by sending mailers to their entire neighborhood. And then I did some door hangers for them. And then I did some door knocking. Now, one thing to keep in mind, though, which is totally unrelated, but I just like to be transparent with all of this. If we're talking about door knocking, I need you to know that you need to dress appropriately, not only in terms of like looking the part, but also in terms of you're going to be doing some walking. And we can walk that neighborhood all the time, but you forget that when you're doing door knocking, you are literally walking up their driveway, probably walking up some steps and then back down again for each one. And we're not walking through their yards because we don't want to make people mad. So it can be a workout. So make sure that you dress appropriately because it might be a little hot. Now, for sale by owners, that's another nice one to think about. I know this is kind of a specific field. This is kind of in between, like if you like prospecting, if you don't mind picking up the phone and calling people, this can be a great option. It can be very similar to internet leads, but it can be a lot more cost efficient. And so what you can do is you can go in and you can find people that are either looking to sell their home for sale by owner, or expired, and you can reach out to those individuals and just see if they've had any success selling their home so far, see if they're still looking to sell their home, see if you can be a resource in any way. You have to make sure you kind of get in the habit of doing repeated prospecting to these people, but there's a number of ways to do it. One, you can go onto MLS and you can search by expired, like do a regular buyer search for expired, and do a timeline and do some criteria, probably pick a neighborhood or something that you want to target or a given area, so it's not too overwhelming of a list. And you can then use a reverse phone number lookup for those people. Or you can buy programs that are specifically dedicated to this. I know Vulcan 7 is one of the most common that we'll hear. In that, I think it's like $200 or $300 a month. So it's not cheap, but on the scale of internet leads, it ain't bad. And so that is a whole list of for sale by owners and expireds. And so you can then go through and make calls based on that. And like I said, just reach out and say, hey, I'm Kate Stedman. I'm calling with Choice Residential. I saw that you were looking to sell your home. So I just wanted to reach out and see if you've had any success with it or see if it's still available. Oh, it is awesome. Have you given any consideration into working with an agent? Well, that's understandable. You don't want to give up commission if you don't have to. Well, in the meantime, is there any way I could be a resource to you? Are there any questions that you have that I could answer? I know that area very well. Like, no, I'm good. Okay, awesome. Well, I wish you all the best. I hope your home sells tomorrow. But just know I'm here to be a resource in the meantime. Why don't I circle back in a week or two and you just let me know how it's going? All right, I'll look forward to talking to you then, right? The thing to keep in mind here is we don't have to add a ton of value. We need to recognize, though, that these people are getting phone calls from a ton of agents, especially right after it first expires. They're getting a ton of calls because a number of people have this, and it's not an exclusive list. Anyone with this software can access it. But the number of agents that continue to follow up with them is very low. And so if you can make it to that threshold of you've done 2 or 3 or 4 outreaches, once you get to that 4th, oh my gosh, you've surpassed everyone else. 9 times out of 10, no other agent has called them that many times. And so if you continue to nurture, eventually they're going to break down and you're going to be able to get in front of them. And I know a number of agents that really ran their business this way and had a lot of success with it. And so if that is your style, you could also look into something called a triple dialer. This is a program that you put that kind of accesses all of that information, and they will call all of those leads. It will normally call like 3 at the same time, and you will set up a voicemail system for it. And so whoever answers the phone first is who it connects you to. And then anyone that you get sent to voicemail for, it will automatically leave the voicemail that you have set up. Or if they answer and you're on the other phone, then it will have some automated message and it will put them in line for you to call them back. So just know all of that. Now, with any of these, that's one of the things that I really wanted to mention on the front end, with expired and for sale by owners and with internet leads in general, you need to be sure that you are not only recognizing the time it will take to do all of these calls, but you need to be very intentional about setting aside time to do scripting. When I was really focused on doing internet leads, I would practice my scripts twice a week with other agents for more than an hour a day. Because if I have a very cold lead that does not know me and could very easily hang up and is already getting a million spam phone calls, if they actually answer the phone, I want to make sure that I'm speaking in a way that adds value and in a way that adds qualifying questions and builds trust with these people. And so if I'm stumbling over my words, if I don't really know what I need to get out of them or what my next step is, if they shut me down on an appointment, am I going to have something else to talk about with them, right? Like, get in the habit of practicing those things, which is why I spent so much time in last class, go through and watch it again, of finding different ways to ask the same question and recognizing that if someone is further out in the timeline, that we want to leave little pieces of information that we can circle back to. We might not necessarily actually want to know everything all at once. So
I did some door knocking and I didn't have the right script because I was asking yes, no questions and people were like, no. So you also need to get the right script so that you're getting an engagement, at least a little bit of a conversation rather than just saying, please go away now.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. it matters. And I mean, no one really wants to practice their scripts. It doesn't seem fun, but once you get in the habit of it, it's not so bad. And especially if we're paying for those leads, especially if we're doing internet leads, then we definitely want to make sure that we are converting them and therefore having the conversations in a way that lead to conversion.
Kate, is there somewhere where we can like download scripts that you know of or anything like that? Or
Yeah, the locker room actually has a ton of scripts. I
Okay.
think we have like an entire scripting book, but that's a great note. Let me write that down and I will find the link. TLR scripts. And if I can, I'll download it and include it. But yeah, I would get in the habit of it. And I was always of the mindset to like practice things in the car. I am unapologetic in letting people know, like, I have no problem talking to myself. So in the car, I will literally just practice my scripts over and over. I was talking to someone the other day, I think it was Allison, and we just talked about the fact that people don't want to do scripts very often, but we forget about the fact that if we were doing an interview or if we were presenting on some large stage, we would practice this over and over. And so if we're having these conversations in our business every day, why wouldn't we be doing the same thing? So recognize that. I would recommend printing these out and then keeping them in your car and maybe just going over going over all of your location related qualifying questions or things like that as you're on your way to your next appointment, and just kind of get in the habit of having those. And then also don't discount the effect that a name tag or networking events could have. I'm not in a good habit of wearing my name tag, but when if I wore it to the grocery store or things like that, I would absolutely end up in conversation with people about real estate because they want to say, oh, what is that? Oh, I'm a real estate agent. And then before you know it, they're looking to buy, or their friend was just looking to buy, or their friend is an agent. You never know what opportunities those small things could bring us in terms of conversing with people around us. So that's it. I just want to say, whatever we do, we just want to make a plan and find what works for us and stick with it. And just know that it's not a one-time thing. Don't get defeated if we don't see the results right away. That's understandable. It all comes with time, but it can take some time. But once you do, it's really, really worth it. So that's kind of what I have for you guys today. I know I went through a lot, but I do want to kind of open it back up one last time to give you guys opportunity and just see if there's anything else you guys want to share, anything you guys have questions about that we either went over or didn't go over today.
I'll just tell a little story. I think I realized when you were talking about geographic farming, I think that's what somebody was doing in my neighborhood the other day. I've gotten in the habit, I don't want to talk to people about, new windows or new roofs or anything like that. So when people walk up to my front door, and I need to stop this because I need to be more open-minded, but I usually say, no, I'm not the owner, or no, I don't have time, or whatever. I didn't want to talk to this young man that walked up to my house the other day, but he was, and I don't know if he had his phone out and he's looking at it as he was walking down the road. And then he walked up to my house and he said, "Are you the owner of the home?" And I said, "Yeah, but I don't have time right now to talk to you." And he goes down my driveway, down to the next house, looking at his phone the whole time, and walked up to my neighbor, and stood there and talked to him for 10, 15 minutes. Now, I mean, the kid was very young, so I don't think necessarily that he was a realtor or even actually like the person. I think somebody hired him to walk around and talk to people. And I can see why. I didn't know about that functionality of MLS, but I can see now if you could do that and look at the phone actively and walk door to door and say, okay, they have a high propensity to sell. Let me find out how high it is. That could be very helpful to an investor or a flipper or whatever. So that was just an interesting bit of insight. I didn't know that functionality existed in MLS. It was extremely powerful.
Yeah, it's relatively new. I think they implemented it like a year ago because I hadn't seen it before until then. But yeah, and I mean, Brian has a personal experience of being out in the yard raking leaves or something, and some guy came up and he was doing door knocking in essence, and he was an insurance agent. They had a great conversation, and Brian already obviously had an insurance agent that he'd used for years, but had a great conversation with the guy. And I think, when you're in sales, you have, I get curious about how good of a salesperson other people are. And I get intrigued by seeing if they're going to follow up with me, or like how good they are at asking questions. I get excited about it. It's cheesy, but, and so he had kind of made a note of like, oh man, that guy was like really easy to talk to, gave him his info, all this stuff. And he never heard from him again. And he was like, if he had, like, we had such a great conversation, if he had sent me a text afterwards or sent me an email thanking me for my time and then continued to follow up, like, who knows, in good time I could have gotten there. But yeah, it's always interesting to see what other people do. Since you just shared, Billy Joe, would you mind sharing what you texted me the other day? Because it's a little unrelated to like lead generation, but it's still very exciting, because you know how I talk all the time about just being in conversation with people.
About my neighbor. Yeah. So yeah, I was in the yard raking leaves, and a lot of you don't know, Kate knows, but I have been through some really rough last couple of years. And part of it is that I don't enjoy talking to people. So all of this, the cold calling and the going, the open houses, it's all sort of like, But there are people that I enjoy talking to, and especially my neighbors. And I have 2 dogs and I go walking. But anyway, my neighbor was walking by, and she just made a comment about how many leaves I had in my yard or whatever, said that she needed to do that. And so we got started talking about the leaves. And then we, of course, were talking about the home, and she was talking about her home. And then next she was talking about downsizing. And next she was talking about traveling for a year and possibly putting her home on the market. So it's just, like I told Kate, for once I remembered to tell her that I was in real estate. So if she needed some help, to be sure and let me know. I didn't have a card on me, which would have been, the icing on the cake. But it just has been difficult for me to even like put myself out there as, I could help you with this, or I'm a realtor and I, buying and selling houses is my thing. It's just not there. But that conversation worked out really well. And yeah, that's probably what you wanted to hear, right, Kate?
It is. And it made me so happy because, like we talked about today, there's a million things you can do to run your business. It can feel overwhelming, and some of them really resonate with you. Some of them don't resonate at all. And I think also recognize what your personality style is and what excites you. But at the end of the day, we just need to be in conversation with people, and we just need to do things that make us happy. And so if we're just in our day to day, and like if gardening's our thing, if we want to be out, like whatever, but just be comfortable having conversation. If that's all you do, like I love that. So thanks for sharing. Cool.
And a good little trick too, if you don't have a card on you, because, and I learned this from a coach, but a lot of people that hand out cards, like people will lose it or never call them. A good thing is to kind of like pat and be like, oh gosh, like I don't have a card on me. Can I get your phone number or email? And I'll send you my contact information. That way you have their contact information, can keep up with them.
Mm-hmm.
That's a great suggestion, Bryn. it never even occurred to me. But like I was trying to figure out where exactly she lived, and she was kind of hesitant to tell me where she lived. As most people are, she's an older lady, a little older than me even. So yeah, if I could have said, why don't you shoot me a text right now? We always have our cell phones on us, right? And then I could by phone. That's a good idea.
And I have a digital business card that I put on my phone, and it's in my photos, so I can share it anytime I'm around anyone that needs it. I can just even airdrop it to them.
That's a great idea. I love that. Or even just sending people your contact card. I put myself in my phone as a contact. Like, I think it automatically does that for you, but then I created a separate one for my business, and I put like Choice Residential Realtor with my website and my email, like all my work stuff in there, my work Instagram. And then that way I can easily share it with someone, and they've got all of that. Yep. Also, just put yourself out there, find things that excite you. I know Brenna, I don't know if you're in a position where you could talk, but I know Brenna was really, really intentional about doing networking events. And I know that can be a little intimidating because it feels like when you go to a networking event, there's already a million agents, or they want to be selective about only having one or whatever. Don't be afraid to make your own little networking group. Just because something exists, just because someone else is already farming this neighborhood, or just because someone else already does X, Y, and Z, does not mean that they have tapped into the entire market and it is theirs exclusively to have. There is no harm in creating your own networking group or rising to the challenge. And also farming that neighborhood. It looks like Renew hopped off already, but she is relatively new to the business, and her neighborhood has a few very strong agents that are present in it and are a little protective of the fact that they farm that neighborhood. And she just went in and was like, well, like that's good for you, but you don't own it, So she made her own little Facebook group with some of the neighbors, and she does her own little networking events. And sure, some of those other people didn't like it, but I think, first of all, that's why we're amazing here at Choice, is a rising tide lifts all ships, and we're not here to be competitive with people. If we can all just be resources to our community, that's what we're here for, first of all. But also, no one can do it like you can, and not everyone forms the same relationship with everyone else. And so, yeah, some neighbors might hit it off with these people, but that doesn't mean you don't have an opportunity as well. So, all right, y'all. I've spoken enough. You get the point. There's a million things to do, but do what excites you, do what you do best. If you want to chat offline and make a plan, let me know. Don't be afraid to just do something. I think also when we're looking at lead generation, it can be overwhelming to know where to start or feel like we need to have a whole plan for the whole year. And yes, we kind of do, but don't let that get in the way of actually starting it. And so if all you can do is send out one postcard and be like, I don't know when the next one will go out, start with that. And then the next time you feel creative, dedicate that time to do it. I'm a big advocate for working when you feel successful or working in accordance with how you're feeling. So when you feel creative, make your Instagram post or make your plan for whatever, but cool. All right, you guys, thank you for your time. I appreciate all of you. Have a wonderful rest of your day. Talk to you guys.
Thank you, Kate.
You're welcome.
Thank
Bye,
you.
y'all.